Anglers of the Internet, welcome back to another Advanced Kayak Angler podcast brought to you by Fishing Online, fastest shipping on the internet. I'm your host, Kurt Smits. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Now let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody. It's another week, and I don't know where you're at in the country, but here in Southwest Ohio, the warm-up is happening. This week, the water temperatures have gone from under 40 degrees to 50-degree water temperature. So the fishing has been exploding. People are posting online about it. It's just, I love this time of year. Everything's waking up, man. It's my favorite time of year. And to go, this podcast is going to go with one we did before with Jordan Marshall and Matt Scotch. Talking about forward-facing sonar. We got Ewing Minor and Jake Harshman to talk about it with us this week, about the positive aspects of it and maybe some negative stuff too. But let's get into it. Guys, welcome back, man.
What's going on, guys?
How's it going?
So we were talking before about forward-facing sonar before we started this, and just chatting about it. And, you know, I kind of brought you guys on thinking that you guys would have like lots of positive stuff to say about it. But that doesn't seem to be the case, man. What are your feelings on it? Because it's such a hot topic right now. We all know it's a hot topic. Everybody's talking about it everywhere. So, I mean, why don't we start with Jake? Jake, it looks like you're ready to bust.
Well, I mean, I've caught so many fish the past 2 days. It's been stupid. And I didn't use forward facing sonar for any of them because they were all in Susquehanna River fish. But so I don't know, man. Like I see some really, really good aspects of it. I think you can. What I started using it for was learning fish behavior. You know, you find the fish, you see the way that they react to a lure, or the way that they react or are doing certain things on certain days. It was a teaching tool for me because I didn't have anyone to teach me to bass fish. I had to teach myself, right? And no one in my family did it. Like everybody was trout fishermen, so I had to teach myself all this stuff, and kind of learning as I go. And the forward-facing sonar, whenever it came out and I started using it, like it really helped me accelerate that learning of the developing a pattern and knowing how to target the fish and things like that. And I can't use it anywhere at home, like in my home river where I fish primarily. I mean,
nowhere on the Susquehanna.
I mean, maybe there might be some wintering holes that it's worthwhile, but with current moving through it, so moving everything so quick, like it's hard to understand what's a fish and what's not. What what I mean? Like there's always stuff moving, moving through the cone and everything like that. So it's it can be very fuzzy and I mean. Ewing, you've been here plenty of times. You know what this river's like. I would say it's virtually pointless to even have a graph most of the year.
I like having a map just for waypoints and tracks.
Yeah.
So you guys are obviously fishing so shallow that it doesn't matter to have a fish line.
Is there any other way? I mean, would you rather catch a bass in 2 feet of water or 20 feet of water, Kurt?
Well, on the Susquehanna, man, my luck has been I would just want to catch a bass.
Oddly enough, I opened up a guide service this year. I encourage you to come out for a trip. We'll get you on some fish.
I'll take you up on that, man.
I won't even
lessons on it.
I won't even charge you any money.
It's like, Kurt, you love fishing the Ohio River, and I'm like, they're nothing alike.
Yeah,
they're like night and day difference, man.
But 2019 was when I first put live scope on my kayak. To my knowledge, I don't know anybody that had it on there before I did. I put it on there and as a kind of like a, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I think maybe I got a little extra money on my tax return and said, let's do this. I played with it, used it, and it, paid off at Lake Seminole because I was fishing for shallow fish on day one, and I wouldn't have known that they moved, out deeper on day two as early as I did if I wouldn't have had live sonar. But but seeing those fish where they went from, right up near the surface in 5 feet of water to being down in like 10, 15 feet of water told me that I needed to put on a heavier jackhammer and to get down to them. And then whenever I got down to them, it was the same bite. I just had to wait for it to fall and get down there. And that's how I ended up doing well in that tournament and kind of sneaking out everybody there because I think we were both in the top 5 or so in day one. And then Josh just didn't have as good of a day as he had on day one, and we were able to sneak in there. But yeah, there's a lot of benefits to it, but man, there's a lot of negatives too. Like these fish ain't getting no breaks no more. They used to get breaks whenever they would go out and go in some brush pile in 30 feet of water that maybe only 2 people knew about. But now with the advancements in side imaging and the advancements now with live sonar, like those fish are just as susceptible as the fish that are in the pads,
Yeah, I feel that with the side imaging because everyone talks about live imaging, and I'm like, before live imaging there was side imaging, and that's how we would dial in on these brush piles. You set it at 60 feet, 100 feet each side. Mm-hmm. And you just cruise around until you start, you mark them. Boom, 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 boom. But, that's another story.
Yeah, you're dating yourself, Kurt. That's so 2020.
I am dating myself a lot, man,
I'd go as far as saying that a fish sitting in that brush pile in 30 foot of water are, probably 10 times more pressure than a fish that's up laying on the bank. You hardly even, at least around here in East Tennessee, you don't really see many people fishing the bank anymore unless it's dirty, blown out water. People will stay out there pinging their minnow as long as they possibly can. And that's kind of what it's gotten to. It's just big crappie fishing.
Oh, it is like big. It really is because look at what everyone's throwing. It is like an upscaled crappie rig. And as a matter of fact, early on, we were throwing crappie rigs. Let's face it. We were. I was. I have been. It's. That's part of the live scope thing, right? Is throwing those small and trying to target them. It's interesting hearing that you're saying it's 10 times more pressure to fish out deep because in a very short period of time, at least in my opinion, it's gone from find the fish out deep because they're less pressured.
Yeah.
I would spend more time. It takes more time to get out on the water and find those deeper brush piles in 20, 30 feet of water. And I would spend time doing that, but that's definitely changed. And I've noticed that too, is like one of the Hobie championships, I was like, that was my plan. I'm like, I'm going to go deeper than everybody else. And everybody was in 20 to 40 feet of water. I looked around and I'm like, everything I had marked had 3 people on it. I'm just like, damn it. Man, but the bank was cleared out.
Maybe it's time for me to start fishing the Hobie BOS again because I would rather fish the bank. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Might be tough.
Maybe they'll be back. Hopefully, I got my fingers crossed.
I hope so.
Everybody's frozen. Host?
I don't know. Are we? It seems like he's frozen. Kurt, come back to us. Come to the light.
Yeah, we've lost him.
I don't know. like he's still at least showing on my end. Is he showing on your end?
I can see him. He's just hasn't moved in a while.
I'm texting him right now.
But while we were since we were talking about the Susquehanna and live scope earlier, after the last day of practice this year, when I won that Bassmaster, someone approached me at the ramp. It's like, hey, how are you catching them scoping? Like, what are you scoping out there? And I was like, what do you mean? They said, well, everyone said you're out there scoping smallmouth. They see you out. And I had literally took my transducer off of my kayak to get it out of the way. And people
believe some crazy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you know, I got rid of my Garmin stuff because on the kayak, especially on the inflatable, I didn't want to have to deal with a black box and all that crap.
I can see that being tough on an inflatable.
Yeah, so I had gotten rid of the Garmin stuff and I bought the Humminbird Mega Live, and you know, it's not nearly as good as the Garmin. But I will say that after having and using Humminbird Mega 360, I would rather have Mega 360 over any live sonar that there is, personally.
If you're fishing structure, and I could see, especially for the river,
yeah,
like 360, being able to see how the rock veins lay out and and that stuff, that would be a lot more beneficial than live scope. But I mean, at the same time, you could use perspective mode and get that in real time.
I was never able to get my perspective mode dialed in. Like, I never got it dialed in to the point where I could like look at it and rely on knowing what the hell I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And that might have just been, you know, my own fault for not trying long enough, or, you know, trying like doing more with it. But yeah, you know, I think even now that I have the boat, if I put the Mega Live back on the boat, I'm probably still going to stay with just one graph, one company, and network everything all together. But I don't even know if I'm going to do it. I don't even know if I'm going to get the Mega Live. I don't know if it's that important to me.
If you're fishing out there, I wouldn't even.
Yeah. I mean, there's a chance that I might go, you know, use it down on the upper Chesapeake Bay and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm probably more likely just going to buy. What I would like to find is another Solix unit to put at my console, and then just keep the Solix unit that I have up at the bow, and then just be good with the 360, and that's it. But I also need to invest in a Minn Kota trolling motor, probably an Ultrex, because I have a motor guide, and
is it the big head one?
Is it what?
Is it the one with the head that's like this big? On
yeah. Yeah.
These things are terrible.
It does what I need it to do.
Does it?
Yes.
When you hit spot lock.
So if you're under a bridge, I can tell you what happens when you hit spot lock.
That's anything.
Yeah. But so far with this motor, it hasn't gone batshit crazy.
So Jackson, when he had, I don't know, he might still have that boat, but that Phoenix that he had that motor on it. And you would hit spot lock and it just takes you off trolling down through the middle of the lake. Has no clue where it is. It just pick, and it wasn't like it was one particular direction. It just pick a random, it'd spin itself around, pick a direction, and take off.
So sorry, guys. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. This is what we've come to expect from you.
Man, my computer just went to a blue screen and just started rebooting. I'm just like, I didn't even know what to do. I was just like, oh my God, stop. Don't. But I'll edit all that out so you don't have to. If Jake was being inappropriate.
No, I think we kept it PG.
Okay.
Surprisingly, Kurt, I do have a little respect. First of all, what's this one called?
It was
Advanced
supposed to be
Angler.
the pros about forward-facing sonar, but
But this is called Advanced Angler Podcast, right?
Oh yes, advanced.
Yeah, I know my audience. If I go on Bass and Brews, I know that I can talk about feet picks and things like that. But if I'm on Advanced Angler Podcast, I have to try to, censor myself a little bit.
Well, we like to try to, gives out some juice to everyone. Yeah. So Ewing, you want to tell us a little bit about like when you kind of first got introduced to forward-facing sonar?
Yeah. So, well, I guess the first time I got introduced was January 1st of 2021, I believe.
Damn, that's really specific, dude.
Well, I fished a tournament on New Year's Day, and that was the first time I had used it.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, we fished a jerkbait around a little bit. I might have caught one fish on it. Didn't realize how powerful of a tool it was until I got down to Lake Seminole, and I was borrowing Jamie Koza's kayak, and he had the 12-inch Garmin on there with live scope. And I don't think I caught a bass that week that I didn't watch eat on the screen. And then it clicked. I was like, wow, I need to buy this as soon as possible. This is going to be the next big thing. And I think it already was, but people weren't talking about it that much. They were trying to keep it to themselves. But yeah, it just, from then on there, I started with a jerkbait. I feel like that's definitely the easiest presentation for it because you can stop it and find your bait. If you come off of it, you can still go back and it's not going to fall all the way to the bottom like some other baits. But that's still my favorite thing to throw on it is a jerkbait just because of how reactive it is. And a lot of this nowadays, a lot of it's gone to, supernatural presentations or super slow, which like the jig head minnow that everyone's doing. I can catch them on it. I don't really enjoy it because it's just you're steady. You might speed it up a little bit, but you can't make that bait dart off to the side and make the fish react. It's more of a actual hunger that the fish are coming up, they're inspecting it, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna eat that. It's not something where I see how the fish is acting with the jerk bait. If the fish is kind of slow on it, I can slow it way down and let them catch up to it. Or if they're moving fast, I can keep it going fast and make them really try to catch up to that bait. But with that minnow, it's kind of, if they're going slow, you can only fish it so slow. And I mean, once you get it to a certain speed, it's just going to kind of roll up on its side and not do much. But just different baits, seeing how Jake was talking about, seeing how the fish react to it. And for me, I'm primarily using reaction baits. I also use a lot of like flutter spoons and jigging spoons are very effective for me on that. Then just target fishing, like throwing it instead of you go out. Used to be maybe you mark a stump field and you drag a Carolina rig through it. Now there might be one stump on a point, and I go and I specifically target that one stump. There doesn't have to be as much cover or structure, so to speak, to be able to pinpoint it. You can be really efficient about hitting those smaller pieces of structure that it seems like, I mean, really a stump in the past year or two has proved that it's probably the number one fish habitat for bass. Like all of these Tennessee River tournaments, you're seeing these crazy weights. They're literally throwing a minnow at stumps all day long. A lot of the times they're getting 5 to 8 bites in a day. It's brutal. It's not very fun to me, at least. I'd rather go catch them in a different way, but that's kind of what competitive bass fishing has become, at least on the boat side. And I don't like that. It's too one way. It's, oh, you need these 3 Japanese minnows that are $15 a pack if you can find them, or you're just going to get beat. I miss when it was trying to find something different, not can I outshake my minnow. Like, it's in the kayak fishing, it's still, and I don't know why, but it's still not dominated by the minnow style baits. There's people catching them on it, but it's a lot more people are having success in other ways.
So let me ask you this. You guys have both hit a couple of good topics. I mean, some of the positives here about forward-facing sonar would be the efficiency of it.
Absolutely.
Like you can see things with it that you can't necessarily see in as much detail with side imaging. Like you said, one stump, and I find it funny you say that because, man, that is one of my favorite things about the forward-facing sonar is just finding stumps. These little things that were so hard to hit and target because it would be like, 12 inches, 20-inch stump. It'd be so hard to target that and hit it effectively with side imaging. But with forward-facing, it's like, it's 21 feet, exactly what angle. But obviously, it sounds like you both don't like how it fishes. And I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the minnow. I've done it, and I don't even like doing it during a tournament. Even, I'd rather fish other ways, and I still fall into that. And I guess because maybe I'm old, but
I'm a power fisherman, right? I wanna throw spinner baits. I want to throw chatter baits. I want to throw crankbaits. I want to do those kinds of fun things. I don't want to look down at a screen and try to get my little jig head on top of the little stump 20 yards, 30 yards out in front of me. I don't want to do that. I have no desire to do that. I personally think that at least last year, like the rigs were over the top too, right? I mean, there were some guys like I want to say, was it Brian Schmidt had like 4 screens at the bow and like 4 screens at the I think it was like 4 and 4. Like we're like, that's crazy, right? Like that's an insane, like there was one guy that he had so much, and I was like, how can he see where he's going?
They actually made a rule about that.
Yeah.
It cannot stick up. You can only have a certain number of inches, and it's can only stick up so high while you're running, which you've also seen a lot of graph mounts now that people can raise and lower their graphs, one to get it up to where they can see it, but also they have to be able to lower it back down in order to beat that regulation.
Yeah, it to me, it's just like I don't know. Like I feel like I like the idea of, I don't know which entity it was, but they said you could only have like one live sonar on the boat, and then I did see like the maximum inches of screens and stuff like that. Like, I guess that's a step, in my opinion, a step in the right direction. I don't personally think that bass fishing should be dictated by live sonar. I mean, I don't know. I think overall in the long run, I mean, gosh, this is going to be a controversial thing to say, and there's going to be people who disagree with this. You're spotlighting deer. I mean, you're spotlighting deer. Like, this is not fair chase.
Gosh, man, and you're actually right. I mean, I have to admit, like when I use it, I'm becoming more and more like when I first got it, I was more looking for like points and exactly where the point started.
We were trying to use live sonar. We were trying to use live sonar like we use side imaging.
Exactly.
Because we didn't know anything else.
Nope.
And now it's like it's a video game is what it is.
Man, so you guys are like poo-pooing forward-facing sonar. You guys really are. I mean,
you're gonna have to call Ben Milliken or somebody else on here to talk about how great it is.
Well, you know, I mean, I tell you what, like Ben Milligan and Randy Polnick both, or not Randy Polnick. Who's the guy who's like
Randy
Blockett?
Blockett. That's Brandy Blockett. They both make me want to puke. I'm like, just shut up, man. I just want to see fishing. I don't care anymore. I don't want to hear about it. You guys, I just want to, you know, unless you're talking about a spinnerbait or a new worm or something, I don't even want to. Those guys make. I got tired of it. You know what I mean? I just got.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I understand. You know, some people hate it, some people love it.
I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and judge anybody for using it, because if that's what they like, I don't care, right? Like if Ewing loves to go out and live sonar fish, I promise you it is not going to dictate the number of hours of sleep that I do or do not get whenever I go back to that bedroom back there.
Right.
Like I'm not worried about what Ewing is doing for fun. And the only reason why I say that I want it to be limited on the professional scene is, well, there's a couple. One, for the safety reasons that I mentioned, like all that weight, all that space, like all that stuff that that I talked about.
And what about for kayaks? What do you think it should be for kayaks? Because Bass has rules on it. You're only allowed to have one transducer on there. You can have as many fish finders as you want. You know, you can have 2 fish finders, but you can only have one transducer.
I mean, I think one live sonar on a kayak is a very reasonable rule.
Right.
Especially if we're going to try to push the affordability of kayak tournaments, because that's
over with, dude.
No, even without it, look at a boat. You go spend $15,000 on a kayak, you get something fully rigged out, top of the line,
kick-ass kayak.
Yeah, you spend $15,000 on a boat, it's probably going to blow up in 2 months.
Yeah.
Like it, and then, but just if you start adding, now you need 2 live sonars to compete. There's another so many dollars.
$1,200. You know, if you throw another transducer on, right? Black box and transducer, it's $1,200.
Yeah. Another battery.
Yeah, another battery or bigger battery.
Well, in terms of kayaks, I think that one rule that needs to be enforced is the load rating for boats, for kayaks. If your kayak has a 500-pound load rating and you're a 250-pound dude and you put 300 pounds worth of gear on it, you're not doing that the way that it's intended to be done, and that's a safety issue, which I don't know. It's
funny you say that right there, because there was a couple guys that were having problems with their Hobies and taking on water, these 360s, and they were both like bigger guys, and I'm a big guy too, and then I started looking at their kayak, and they had their trolling motor on the front, and then the front bin was full of plastics, and I was like, man, how much stuff do you guys have on there? Big giant batteries, torpedoes on the back. I mean, when I saw them in the water, it was like this much below the rail. I mean, I was like, oh. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's that's an issue. It's the same way it's an issue with the bass boat, with the sight lines for safety. Like, it's the same issues with kayak. Like, you have to. I feel like but there's no way to enforce that though. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, hey,
where do we draw the line in the arms race? Right? I mean, are we going to draw a line, or are we just because the next thing is that everybody's single transducer now, right? I mean, that's a given. So who's going to make the single transducer that does forward and perspective at the same time? All in one transducer. So they can just hit the screen. You go up shallow, you go in 5 feet of water, and you just hit a button on the screen, and you're in perspective. You turn around, you go out and fish the humps, and you hit down, and you hit forward or down. It's going to be built in. I mean, someone's got to do it, right?
You could just raise your motor or your mount and change it.
You can, but what I'm saying is that there's going to be advancements in technology, whether it's doing forward and perspective or an even clearer image that goes out even farther with it. Because I mean,
that's when we're going to run into issues, is when they keep going further and further. Because I think with LVS 32, that first live, well, I guess it wasn't the original, but the first one that became mainstream, your max range, if you had it really dialed in, you could see a bait at 90, maybe 95 feet.
Wow, that's like really dialed in.
Really,
I don't know if I've ever seen one so dialed in.
I've had one. I've actually had three different LVS 32 transducers. Only one of them, exact same settings, exact same mount, exact same power. Only one of them was able to do that. The other two, one was like 55, 60, the other one maybe 70 foot. So there definitely is a little bit of variance in those transducers.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I don't know if that's I really don't know. It's sometimes you get a good one, sometimes you get a bad one. I guess it's like anything in fishing. You can have a rod that's a lemon. You can have but now you're getting with the 34, it is, and the active target too. Both of those they're so clear and you can see so far that, I mean, these fish, you're hitting a bait in front of them before they even know you're there.
One time I saw my bait on my Mega Live transducer 25 feet away.
There's a reason I didn't bring. Well, the Mega Live 2 is supposed to be good.
It's supposed to be. All I know is Garmin, because they seem to be the best bang for the buck, and two, their Panoptics seems to be.
So I was telling Ewing while you were away doing whatever you were doing. So I transferred, like, I used to, I had the Garmin, right? That's what I started with. And then whenever I got the inflatable boat, I had this black box and I held all these wires and the transducer and everything else like that. And I wanted to get away from that. So that's why I went and bought the Mega Live and the Mega 360 so I didn't have all that extra box and all that extra wires and stuff. And I think that in terms of advancements, I really think that that's what the companies need to figure out. The companies need to figure out how to make it less complicated to install, easier, so, being able to just plug your transducer into the back of the thing and not have to go to the black box and then from the black box to the, I feel like that's like Humminbird has that already, but their product isn't as good. When they figure out how to still get the same quality of the product without having all the extra stuff, I think that's the next advancement that they really need to work on and focus on.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering why they hadn't done something like that. I mean, honestly, because when you start, I mean, it's not just rigging a kayak. I mean, a boat too. You start rigging it out, man, and you start doing 2 transducers, and you got 2 black boxes, and you got 2 more power sources, and it's like, and it comes, and then it goes back out, and I'm like, man, it just starts becoming so many penetrations in the boat. It's just a hassle, man. And you got to keep everything looking clean and making sure that it doesn't rub on itself or something like that.
I mean, does any professional anglers or even collegiate anglers, do any of you guys rig your own boats anymore, or do you have to take them to a professional?
Oh, a lot of people do it on their own because, the simplest thing to do is when you run your live scope, and this is very common. you take it, you mount your black box in your rod box, the one in front of the driver's seat, and you have a small lithium of some sort, whether it's an 18 amp hour or a 24 or whatever you want to run. You have that for your black box specifically right there.
Just the black box, nothing else.
Just the black box.
Ooh.
That's how you're getting the clarity, right?
You get more clarity that way, and you don't have to worry about running all that wire, because then you get with the Garmin, it's certain gauge per foot and that they recommend, and it's just a lot of people, at least a lot of people that are running them on their own, wiring it on their own, that's the way it's.
Dude, that'd be so much simpler. So much simpler is doing it that way. I didn't even think of that, and that's something interesting for anyone who's thinking about doing it on a boat, is try that method.
You froze up again. I was like, oh no, we lost him again.
Am I gone?
No, I got you. I can hear you.
Oh, we're back. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on tonight, man.
It's that Ohio internet. That Ohio internet. I mean, are you close to West Virginia? Is that the issue? Like,
I'm on the other side of the state. I'm close to Indiana.
No, I know. I just poking fun at Matt Ball's West Virginia. That's all.
Yeah, he identifies more as a West Virginian than an.
I know he does. He's not Ohioan.
No, he's not at all.
But yeah, I mean, I would love to see. What I would really love to see is I would love to see these electronics companies actually make electronics for kayaks, right? Like, I would love to be able to buy a kayak package where I don't have 40 feet of transducer wire that I have to bundle up and put somewhere.
Yeah.
Like,
I completely agree with that, because I don't even want to open up and look at the hull of my kayak, because it's jumbled up, and Jamie did it all nice and neat, but I've gone in there and, I take off my transducer to go fish the Susquehanna so I don't have a scope pole in my way, and I put it back together. I don't wrap my cords. It's all a big old wad of wire down there. and it definitely, if they had, instead of I think they have like a 20-foot cable or 15-foot cable.
It's at least 15.
If they had a 8-footer for kayaks.
Yeah.
That way it'd give you enough to go around stuff, but that'd definitely be a.
So that's another aspect where I mean, we can easily say that Garmin's the best, Lowrance is second best, and Humminbird is third, right? But the advancement, or the areas where Humminbird is succeeding in the, like, compared to the other two, is the no black box, which obviously hurts a little bit of the quality because that sonar module, makes the quality a little better. But there's also, with the Humminbird, there's not a large amount of wire. Like, there's a connection to an Ethernet, or not an Ethernet. Yeah. Is it Ethernet? Yeah, it is Ethernet. So it's a connection to the Ethernet cord, so you can change out your own size cord to make it whatever you want it to be at the end of your live sonar, which is really nice. So like there's those advancements that, companies are making, but, I don't know how much of that is a contributing factor to Humminbird being the third best quality. I'm assuming the lack of a module, the lack of the black box, is likely the thing that makes Humminbird not as good as the other two. But they do have some areas where I think they're doing better than what Garmin and Lowrance are doing. Also to that, I think that their concept of like the flip down of the to get into the landscape mode is nice. Amazing. Yeah, so like you don't have to. There's not as much that you have to tool around and do with the Humminbird as you do with the Lowrance and the.
Oh, so if you want to switch between like forward facing and what you're calling landscaping, landscape mode, it's just
Press the button and
significantly
click it
easier.
over.
Yes, it's 2 buttons. There's 2 buttons and then it folds down.
Man, I honestly, I am shocked with all the forward-facing accessories that there isn't a company that makes a little mechanism that you pull a little cord and it goes from one to the other, right? I am just shocked that no one's invented that because, I mean,
Or the press of a button.
or a press of a button, yeah, something.
They have electric turrets for their.
Oh.
Why can't they have one that rotates it over?
So, does anyone have any experience at all with the target lock that Humminbird or that Minn Kota and Humminbird has?
I have not, but I am pretty familiar with the way it works.
So, how effective is that? Like, is it something that actually is good, or is it?
So, it's a the target lock. The way it works is by a GPS coordinate,
Right.
in the way that if you're going along and you lock it onto something, it will stay facing in the direction of that stump or that brush pile. But if you want to lock it onto a school of bait, it's just wherever that school of bait at the time that you locked it on, it's gonna be looking at that. But even then, you have that option to do the target lock, and you also have the option to put it in line with the Ultrex. So you've got both things turning at the same time at the same rate. So
and it only works with Humminbird, right? It won't
only works with Humminbird, which I think if a company came out with that you could use with Garmin or Lowrance, that could be a huge next thing. But that's mainly just with the bass boat. We're not really. I guess if someone came out with a trolling motor, for a kayak with a target lock system,
I would pay for a target lock system.
You could make it that'd be the next step.
Like if I didn't have to have a pole on the side and I could just do it, like hit a button and say, just point at that thing right there.
Listen, I got to tell you about a guy locally. I love him to death, man. He's a good buddy of mine. His name is Dave. Or no, not Dave. It's Alan Hurt. So I was thinking of somebody else, but Alan took his Lowrance and he programmed them into like some smart glasses. And he also took an old trolling motor head and rigged it up where he could foot control his active target on the front of his Hobie while having his Torpedo in the back. And he was, instead of looking down at a graph all day, was looking through his smart glasses and seeing the screen.
See, this is the type of stuff that, right? Because these are advancements, right? I mean, and everyone's like 2 transducers are unfair, but freaking glasses and having like a trolling motor. I mean, like,
dude, when he did it,
where's the line?
So look, I have zero issues. Like if you're in a kayak and someone wants to take an old trolling motor head and rig it up where they can put their
yeah, I'm okay with that. Honestly.
Whatever. I'm fine with that because that's all you're doing is you're basically repurposing a trolling motor that is not used for propulsion. And, I'm good with that as long as that's your one transducer, right? I think the glasses are a little over the top though. Like, because if you're looking at that on your glasses and I don't know, I don't know. I mean,
I feel like that almost wouldn't be as effective as a screen.
No, it's not. The resolution and everything is not. The quality is not going to be as good as what you would look at on a screen. No, but
it would be cool.
That's
for sure.
It was cool.
So, I mean, do you think that's where bass fishing's going? Is that we're going to basically have this super high resolution forward?
Unfortunately.
I mean, and that's how we're going to be fishing. We're going to be like, oh, look, there's a 6.5 pounder.
I think
so. It's almost that good now, right? I mean, it literally, like when I look at fish, I have a rough idea on what I'm going to pull out.
I want to let Ewing answer this first, and then I have something that I want to very controversial that I'll bring up.
Well, I honestly expect in the next 5 or 6 years, I think every tournament trail in the country will probably start following more of what the NPFL did with banning it completely, because it's just, I mean, it couldn't be good. I was on Chickamauga for the Tennessee Bass Nation like 2 weeks ago, last weekend, something like that.
Yeah, I was there.
But I mean, you would get within 30 foot of a fish and it would turn around and bolt because it feels your transducer pegging, and it's.
I want to talk about that a second.
It was, at first I was like, yeah, it couldn't really affect the fish, but it's getting to the point that I almost feel like it's too effective, and there's gonna be consequences for how effective our sonar is. And even if it's not that side of it, if it's the dominated by jig head minnow, the industry, it can't, that's not sustainable for the fishing industry itself, for everything to be based around throwing a minnow on your live sonar. All these bait companies, they're struggling now, and it's probably only going to get worse.
I got to go back. You said that the fish felt the signal.
Yes.
You think that's a real thing? Because I know when I roll up to brush piles, right, and I'll be a ways away from them, not making any noise, but I'll be looking at them with the forward-facing sonar, and you see 1 or 2 or 3 big fish leave it, right? Like I haven't made a cast, I haven't done anything anywhere near it. But what's hitting that brush pile is my forward-facing sonar. And even on my local little lakes, dude, man, I go out there and the guys in John boats have them.
Mm-hmm. I think the heavier the pressured fishery, the more likely you'll see that it'll affect them. I mean, I'm proud to say that there's a few little lakes and reservoirs we have here in central Pennsylvania that have probably never been scoped.
Wow. That's saying something, really.
Oh, yeah. Is there a boat ramp?
one of them is no electric motors, so it's human powered only. So, but yeah, so the controversial thing that I was going to bring up, and this is, there's some speculation to this. There's probably some things to be discussed with it, but the industry is going in a direction where only a certain group of people, a certain group of kids, are going to be able to ever become professional bass fishermen again. And those kids are going to have to come from well-off families. Those kids may not necessarily be the best fishermen. They may not be the best at having that skill.
Yeah.
But they have all of the tools. And it allows them to go in a certain direction where that maybe, like, think of a Bill Lowen, right? Bill Lowen didn't have any money. Like, he's probably a favorite of yours, being an Ohio River guy. Would Bill Lowen be on the Elite Series right now if he was a young kid? I don't think he would have even made it to college level. I don't think he would have been at the collegiate level. And I'm sure that Ewing, and I know I don't want Ewing to buy off on it, but I'm sure that Ewing can probably think of a few collegiate anglers that could never catch a fish without live sonar.
I can think of some pros, but
there's that too. Like, I mean, my point is, like, we're really pigeonholing the younger generation, and if this is how bass fishing continues on, what is bass fishing in 10, 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
I just, there's, I love the technology. I love how it's, it's fun to use, and
You learn a lot. You learn a lot about
you learn a lot about fish behavior. You can pattern fish a lot quicker. I just feel like on a competitive level, at the highest levels, it's spotlighting deer.
Yeah, it kind of is, because a lot of times if a lake has a lot of docks, I love fishing docks, and you know how easy it is to turn that live scope 180 and just run all the docks and just mark them, because you don't have to spend hardly a minute in front of them looking back and forth, and you can see if there's a big fish there or not.
Can we talk about another downside of
without making a cast? Sure, man.
Well, how many times have you gotten stuck on a brush pile or a stump or a dock because you saw those fish there and you couldn't get them to eat?
I've always said that. Man, if you get live scope, you have to be self-aware enough to pull yourself away when fish aren't biting, because you see all the fish, whether they're biting or they're not. And sometimes, I know we've all been there, man, those fish react to it, right? Oh, look, it turned. I turned it. Man, he cast back in there. Oh, look, it turned again. You cast, and then all of a sudden, 2 hours of your tournament time is gone,
For me, in that particular situation, just in general, a kind of a rule of thumb for me is I will throw at a fish one time. Well, I will show a fish my bait one time. If it chases it and it doesn't eat it, I'm going looking for another one. I'm not throwing in back after that same one. It's because 99% of the time, your best reaction is the first one. Sometimes you can, one will come up on a jerk bait. You can throw a worm in there and make them bite it. But usually if it bites it, it's going to be a small fish anyways. A lot of your big fish, the first time they see a bait, they're going to eat it or they're not going to eat it. You can sit there and throw at them all day. I mean, I've had fish that, at Chickamauga, my last big kayak tournament, for example, like I had several times where a 4+ pound fish would come up, shoot up on a jerkbait and follow it back off of the brush pile or just suspended and lose interest 40 feet away from the kayak, and it still hasn't spooked, but I'm not going to try to throw at it. Now, I'm going to come back through that area later once it's reset, and hopefully I can bring my bait past that fish again.
But that's why you're such a good tournament angler, though. Because, and I'm going to give you your flowers on this. You're an incredible tournament angler because of your ability to maximize your time, to utilize your time as effectively as you can, right? That's why you succeed. So, I mean, you're also a good fisherman, right? You know how to catch fish, okay? But having that ability to catch fish and then having that mental ability to say, to hell with that fish. I can see that fish. I know that fish is there, but I'm not going to continue to waste my time. I'm going to go find some other dumb fish and then come back and see this fish whenever maybe it's – but that's what makes you – that's why you have so many of them damn trophies back there behind you, right? Most of us are going to get stuck on, oh, shit, that's a big fish. Like, dude, I worked a northern snakehead on the upper Chesapeake Bay for an hour last year.
Oof.
It was
a long time for one.
It just didn't want to eat, but I was like, that's a giant fish. And every time that I threw in there, it would do something. It wouldn't leave, though, which made me think, like, because it was springtime, I was like, okay, this is probably a bass on a bed. I was like, I gotta catch this fish. I have to catch this fish because I have to catch it. And I threw everything I wanted to throw at this thing. I think it was eventually what ended up happening whenever I saw it leave. I think that it had recently been caught, and it just the snakehead was like,
Spooked, yeah.
I'm done. But I'm also not leaving. I worked that thing for an hour trying to catch that thing, thinking it was a giant bass. I don't know. Like I just
It can. Like you literally have to learn to keep.
You have to tell yourself to not do it. Like, okay, I gotta step away.
Because you can get lost into fish that aren't necessarily going to bite, or you have to fill out your 5 fish. Let's just face it. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're in a big boat or if you're in a little boat. You have to have 5 fish, or very few tournaments have 3 fish. I guess so. There's a few out there that have 3 fish. Wow, so you guys have like poo-pooed on forward-facing sonar tonight, like more than I was expecting, man. So what are like some of the positive aspects of forward-facing sonar?
I think it's the learning curve. Like for me, no one taught me how to bass fish.
Learning from it, yeah. Seeing the behavior, yeah.
I learned how to pattern fish using my live sonar. I mean, I could cast and all that stuff, but learning how to pattern fish and how to target them and that kind of stuff, a lot of that was accelerated by the use of my live sonar. There's that. I think the other thing too is like understanding what's in the bottom of your bodies of water, like what you're looking at, like looking at side imaging and saying, okay, that's different. What is that? Let me scope it. Oh, that's what that is. I think that that's another upside to it. I found some very interesting things on bridge piers down in the Susquehanna River outside of Harrisburg. Like I know exactly where every single shopping cart is in front of every bridge pier, so like being able to find that kind of stuff and look at that kind of stuff, I think there's a huge added benefit of the obvious things that, help you actually catch fish, but knowing what's in the bottom of your river or lake, that's a huge one. I don't want to just sound like a negative Nancy on live sonar, because it is super cool. It's a really cool thing. And the exact opposite of what I said earlier about hopefully this isn't where bass fishing is going because it alienates poor kids. I love the fact that live sonar gets kids interested in fishing, because there's a lot of kids that just aren't interested in fishing. And then you're like, oh, well, but look, you can do this. And then they're like, oh, that's really cool. I want to go do that. And then as a byproduct, they also fall in love with fishing because, that first time, like the first time you catch one, you're like, oh, like you go Ike a little bit. Like, I mean, so there's that. I mean, I guess it could be used, as that's a benefit of it too, to get the younger generation into fishing. I think once they catch one, they're going to be addicted to it.
Yeah.
I mean, like I've always said that bluegill is the gateway drug to fishing, right? That was the first thing we all caught was a bluegill, right?
That's true.
Maybe we should go live sonar fishing for bluegill, Kurt.
Well, actually I have before. It's actually kind of fun, man.
That's not surprising at all.
Another thing that, at least for me, that live sonar has helped is Douglas Lake just down the road. It's very dirty this time of year, great cranking lake, but it'll help reduce fiberglass damage to your boat. As I'm going through this water that has 6 inches of visibility, I look down at my screen. Oh, that rock comes up to 8 inches. I better go around it. Whereas in the past, luckily, I had an aluminum boat, but I just hit that rock. There wouldn't be any avoiding it.
I didn't think of that. I mean, so really, you're using it for navigation.
Yes. It's not even. I'm not looking for fish. I'm not. I might look and say, okay, there's a big boulder a little further out. I'm going to throw my crankbait across it, but I'm not looking for fish when I'm doing that type of stuff. They will hold so close to cover on, or to structure on, like in that muddy water, that you're not going to see them. They're sitting that close to it. And but it can definitely still help you line up with those fish. Another thing, like honing in on your presentation to the fish. They let you know very fast if you're throwing the right thing or the wrong thing, whether that's the actual bait you're throwing, size of the bait, color, just the smallest difference it'll completely completely change if they're gonna eat it head first or just kind of mosey up, see it, and come back down. And even in dirtier water, like that Chickamauga tournament, I was fishing very stained water.
Yeah.
I mean, it was probably a foot and a half visibility, but I was catching them on a jerk bait, and just a difference in color or the brand of jerk bait I was throwing. I was there for 3 days and caught them on 3 different jerk baits. I did not catch a fish on the same jerk bait on any of the 2 days. Any 2 days. It was the first day I caught them on one jerk bait. The next day, I'm throwing that same jerk bait. They're not wanting anything to do with it. And I just switched around because they were still, coming up on it, showing interest. Switch colors, switch baits. And then you get one and it just clicks. And it goes from you throw it 5 fish and you might get a bite to you throw it 3 and you catch 2 of them. Just that. And it's just a subtle little change to them, I guess. It's whether it's weather or I don't know what made them do it, but I know what I saw. And, back in the day we could say, oh yeah, they were eating this, the chrome and orange belly trap better than the red one on this day. But you weren't seeing what fish you were putting your bait in front of. But now with forward facing, you can see, okay, I put my bait in front of 5 fish with this color and none of them ate it. And I put my bait in front of 5 fish with this color and 3 ate it. You can actually kind of do that little experiment on the water by yourself, and it's not 100% because some fish are more active than others, but generally you can get an idea of and hone in on what they want.
It gives you confidence. I mean, it really does. I mean, that's, when I had it, I went, when I first got it, I went out and just sat in this riffle and I watched these smallmouth come out of this, like, it wasn't even truly slack water, but it wasn't as fast as like up by where the riffle was. And you would see them line up. It was just like and you got to see them move into the riffle and where exactly they were positioning. And it was really, I didn't even cast at them. I just sat there and watched a school of smallmouth move around and how they were like, doing stuff. And it was like you guys were saying, it was just so educational on the movement of the bass. It's kind of sad to hear that you guys kind of poo-poo it so much for the tournament anglers, because you guys are right. That is what is happening. I mean, everyone is throwing that minnow in tournaments a lot more.
I don't think I even hate live scope. I think I just hate the minnow.
There could be, I could maybe get on board with that too. I mean, I will say that I feel like bass fishing is not nearly as fun to watch somebody who's live scoping as it is to like maybe watching somebody that's frogging or, even throwing a chatterbait, like somebody's ripping a chatterbait through grass, like watching them rip that chatterbait through grass and, oh, that wasn't a fish. They were just ripping it through grass. Like, that's exciting to watch. No. Like
throwing a minnow.
Yeah, like versus throwing a minnow, and then you see them for 8 hours, and they're just like,
they're just shaking a little bit, man.
It's stupid to me.
Mind-boggling.
At least if I had to watch Ewing throwing a jerkbait at the live scope, I probably wouldn't be completely bored out of my mind.
Right.
But
Yeah, it doesn't make good TV at all. What'd you say, you?
I said when one gets on my bait, I'll be leaned back in that seat, and one starts getting up on it, I'll tense up, I'll sit up straight. It'll fix my posture real fast.
I still haven't tried. I haven't quite figured out a truly effective way to utilize it here on the Susquehanna outside of like wintertime fishing.
I think that's the way.
I mean, wintertime fishing, when you're out there fishing in water that's, you're looking at anything that's deep, 6, 8, 10 feet. That's deep for us, Kurt.
Yeah.
Like that's, I guess that's about the only time that I've ever really truly effectively used live scope here on the river. Even in landscape or in like in the, I don't know what they're called and all the different other ones, but our river's so shallow and there's so much stuff flowing through it. It's hard to really utilize here. I was telling Ewing before, I think while you were out, I've actually grown more fond of the Humminbird 360, the Mega 360, than I am any of the live sonars that I've had. Because of the way that I fish and the things that I'm fishing around, the Mega 360 makes more sense for me.
It is a 360 view, right? I mean, is
yeah,
that how you're using it?
So I use it where it's like 80 in front, like it's like 80% to the side and in front of me. Like it's not, I don't really give a shit what's behind me because I've already passed it most of the time.
Sure.
But that's how I have mine set up on my, on my screen. And does that, let me ask you this, does that Mega 360 count as a live sonar?
Yes, forward facing.
The rules say live sonar, not forward facing.
Oh, so you can have 360 and forward facing sonar?
Yep.
Wow, that's cheating now.
But like
that's not cheating.
Humminbird guys are cheating.
Listen, if you have Humminbird,
not cheating, far from it.
If you're not cheating, but let me just also point out. So, a Humminbird, I hope that they're listening to your podcast, Kurt, because I have a beef with Humminbird. If I buy a $1,500 live sonar and a $1,300 Mega 360 transducer, can I get one of them sons of bitches to tell me how deep it is and what the temperature is, where I don't have to go buy another transducer just to have that?
Really?
Just get that Ultrex built in.
I don't have the Ultrex. You know what I have right now. My trolling motor is perfected going off into Wonderland, My trolling motor is not there yet, right? So maybe once I have the Ultrex, that's not an issue. But I had to go buy a specific Mega down imaging transducer because I didn't have depth or temperature. I thought something was wrong with my stuff. I'm calling Humminbird mad. Like, hey, I just bought your live sonar. And they're like, oh, yeah, it doesn't have that. And I'm like, what? Like, it's $1,500 Mega Live and $1,300 Mega 360. And they can't tell me the temperature or how deep it is? That's crazy.
See, I don't see why the live wouldn't, because I think Active Target lives and live scope both have temperature and depth.
Yeah, they do.
But maybe without a box they can't process that.
I don't know. All I know is that I had to go spend $350 on a transducer that I didn't think I was going to need. Because what I planned on doing was using my Mega 360 as my side imaging on the kayak, because you can lock that into and just make it, do it as side. So I thought I had everything all situated, and I did not. But that's the last thing that I'm going to say that's negative for tonight.
I'll say one positive thing is I have seen at least some recordings of the new Mega Live 2. It looks pretty dang good. I haven't used it myself, but I've seen there's a lot of people that have been using Garmin and Lowrance that are saying they're going to get the Mega Live 2, or they're using the Mega Live 2. And Polinick won his first tournament since Live Sonar came out at Okeechobee. So maybe it is the deal.
I mean, it looks good. I there's a couple things that Humminbird has done in recent years that I think is really good. They've gotten rid of the Helix units, right? With this new Explorer unit that's come on, and they've actually brought their fish finders into a price point that's comparable with, mostly with Garmin, right? Garmin was like taking over the market because of how
Affordable,
reasonably priced their things were. Humminbird has gotten there now with the Explorer series, and they increased the processor speed in that head unit astronomically, so that should be good. Mega Live 2 does seem like a an improvement compared to Mega Live. I love the fact that there's no black box with the Humminbird. And the other, when you're looking at all the different stuff and the things that you want to have on a boat, and you say to yourself, okay, well, I want to have good mapping. Who has the best mapping? Arguably, Humminbird has Lake Master, which is pretty daggone good. And then you're like, okay, well, who has the best side imaging? Well, Humminbird mega side imaging is pretty daggone good. I don't think Garmin holds a candlestick to it. Lowrance is okay with it. I think that they're decent.
Their new one, I've got the 3-in-1 HD on the HTS Pro.
Yeah,
it's really, really good.
Okay, so they've gotten they're there now. But I will say with Lowrance, you're gonna pay for Lowrance, so that is not gonna be cheap. I think overall, compared to when you look at all three offerings, if Mega Live 2 is as good as it looks, they may have just jumped a couple of spots in the market.
I could see it.
The fish finder market changes all the time, man, because there for a while it was all Humminbird all the way, right? That's what I felt like. I felt like either their units were priced right, they had good side imaging, they had good mapping, and then there was a time that Lowrance was kind of like the units to get, and then Garmin came along with the right pricing with the live, kind of pioneered the live. I mean, let's face it, they kind of, no one else.
I just think that, I mean, when you look at all things considered, I know with Lowrance, you can get two of their active targets to kind of have a live 360, but nobody has all of everything of what Humminbird has. Like even if you just give up a little bit of quality with the Mega Live compared to the active target or the live scope, it might be worth it just to have, one unit and one, right? Just one thing that you got to learn and deal with. Because me personally, I am incompetent. If you put a Lowrance in front of me right now, I'm going to break it before I learn how to use it. I just I think that there's something to be said for that ease of use whenever you're talking about, having all these electronics in front of you on a boat.
There is something to be said about that, man. There really is, especially on a kayak, because space is limited, and man, kayaks have gotten so complicated in the last 5 years or so. It seems like 5 years ago, if you had 2 units, you were the weirdo. Now it's like, if you got 1 unit, you're the weirdo.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, guys, I appreciate your time. I've taken up quite a bit of your time this evening. I really appreciate it. I'll give you a chance to thank anyone you want to thank: sponsors, wives, girlfriends, whatever. Ewing, you want to start?
No, I'll just thank Dugout Bait and Tackle for always keeping me rigged up. Thank Hobie for making the 360, because that's, in my opinion, best scoping boat that you can get.
The best scoping boat.
Other than that, just thank you for having me on here. I had a good time chatting with you all this evening, but
really appreciate you coming on. Jake, you want to go ahead?
Oh yeah. So first and foremost, thank you for letting me come on here. I've really kind of came down in everything that I've been, sponsor wise, and I really have gotten everything streamlined to just a couple things. So I just want to thank Temple Fork Outfitters for, keeping me supplied with rods and really setting up my guide business with almost no overhead cost this year. They've really done right by me, and I've been with them for a number of years. So huge thank you to them and Torquedo, and that's basically it. Those are the only ones that I'm currently can say that I have sponsors. So I'm not tournament fishing no more. So
you'll sneak in there. You'll be.
I don't know.
Well, guys, I want to appreciate you coming on tonight, man. This time, even though this didn't go the exact way I thought it was going to go with you guys, I thought for sure it was going to go a different way. But that's enlightening in and of itself, though, right? I mean, talking about a different outcome than what I was expecting. So I really appreciate it. I'm going to end the recording. Everyone, thank you for watching, and thanks for listening. Please like and share.